Hi, everybody. The minute that it press records, I feel like I get into newscaster. Hi, everybody. This is Claire Wasserman here. I'm the founder and author of Ladies Get Paid. We are an educational platform and global community that helps women level up in their careers and achieve financial freedom. I don't think I need to go too much into it because you're all here, but of course, happy to talk anytime. You all have my contact information, and I will respond to you. And I'm not good at responding, but I will respond to you because I am just so appreciative that you are taking your time, your money. Your time is your money. So I just wanted to say thank you. Thanks for being here. And let's do an overview. So I would say the first thing that I want to drop in the chat, and for those of you who are watching this after the fact, you'll have an email with everything that every resource or link that I mentioned here live. But there's the survey that's asking you for your goals, the things where you feel like you need the most help, ideal industries, your current employment status. The way I'm going to be using this survey is to put you into groups. I'm still on the fence about how to group you. I think a diversity is good, but my goal is to hopefully find folks who maybe somebody's in a certain industry that another person wants to get into. Can I introduce you? So, and that also means put the companies that you are interested in potentially applying to, or companies that are just in general, you have been interested in them. That is extremely helpful for me because I have contacts in these places, and also for all of us. There may be somebody who's joining who currently works at one of these companies. So if there's a way that we can source opportunities just from each other, I mean, that's a win. Huge win. And we will have another session that's entirely dedicated to networking, cold outreach, things like that. So I dropped the survey in there. The other thing that's super important is joining Circle. If you don't know about it, it's the new platform that we've begun to use. We're in the middle of transitioning from Slack over to Circle. We've been using Slack for 4 years now. And I dropped the link in there that goes to the Ladies Get Hired space within Circle. And so this is where all the recordings are going to be uploaded, where you're going to upload your resumes, your cover letters, anything that you would like feedback on. Let's not use email. Let's use Circle. Take a look. By the way, if you are not part of Circle, read the email that I sent. I'll also follow up with you, because if you are currently part of the Ladies Get Paid Slack group, the instructions for joining Circle is different from somebody who's not currently in the Slack group. If you're not in the Slack group, it's easy. Just go to ladiesgetpaid.com. /join, and then you'll get added there. Right now, I think we've got about 55 people who are in there. So I'm really going to, follow up with everybody who isn't, because like I said, that is the hub. After we do these Zoom lives, we're all going to just go back into Circle. By the way, I'm also going to be inviting some recruiter friends of mine. Oh, great. I was about to say, oh, it's Friday. I'm tired. It's definitely not Friday. I'm sorry for that. Recruiter friends and HR friends who are in the industries that you all want to be in. That's why that survey is really important. And I'm going to be inviting them into Circle as well, so that they can check out your resumes and cover letters and to give their input. So again, Circle survey, great. I'm also going to be sharing with you a toolkit. And again, all this is going to be in the email that I send you after this. This is a 40-page toolkit that much blood, sweat, and tears and time went into, and it is everything that you need to do and that you need to know in order to get the job. It's largely the framework for this boot camp, but you have the toolkit for life. We're also going to be sharing a 90-minute video as well. That's basically condensed version of this boot camp. We'll send that to you. The last thing is, and I actually would like you to open this up in another tab for me right now, so I'll give you a minute to do that, is today's presentation, actually, because a lot of the presentation are prompts. There you go. So if you could, it's on Google Drive. Let me know if you have any trouble opening a Google Drive. I didn't want to send it to you in advance of today's class because I'd really like to walk you through it myself and then take time after today, whether tonight is good for you or, in the next 2 days, to really sit with it and to use it as kind of the foundation for everything that comes after. Because today is just making sure you're going in the direction that you want to go. I find oftentimes if we are trying to make something work and it is hard, my question is it hard because it's not the right thing? because there is a difference. And I think a lot of us might know that instinctually, something's not right for us, but it's scary to make a different decision because it's new. We've never maybe gone down a certain path before. I want to talk about how to make sure that you're really confident in moving in that direction. And I don't know, after this class, maybe you'll completely decide, okay, I thought I wanted one thing, maybe I want to do something different. I'd love to hear about that. So jump into Circle, jump into the chat. I am curious for those of you who are here today, how many of you feel like you're at a crossroads and you're a bit confused about it? So I'd like to know, right, if you're feeling a little bit sort of directionless, I'm also curious if anybody is looking to make a real pivot here, whether it's transitioning roles or transitioning industries. Yeah, jump in. Bridget said, crossroads here, real pivot. It's my favorite. I love figuring out ways how we can demonstrate that what we've done and who we are is completely transferable. Yes, nonprofit into the tech world. Pivot. I think we're going to do an event at some point later, Janelle, called Pivot. Obviously, reference to Friends. By the way, there's also a really great diversity of years of experience, actually, or years of being in the workforce amongst the 75 people. It's not all folks who recently graduated at all. We've got 11 to 15 years. We've got 16 to 20 plus years. Of course, we do have folks who recently graduated, but it's what I'm loving. The diversity is excellent because even if you feel like you're at a cross the roads or confused or having like a moment of existential agita, somebody else, you can lead them. And I kind of mentioned that before, of just because you might want to be moving into a different space, you may actually be in the place that can help somebody else. So I'm glad that you all good. Yep. Awesome. I'm loving what you're putting here, guys. Okay, fabulous. So just tell me now, jump in the chat. I shared my presentation. It's in a Google Drive folder. Have you all been able to open it? Because I'm going to share my screen in a minute, but when I do these prompts, you're going to want to have it handy. Yes. Okay. If somebody can't, you can also direct message me, by the way. I will also, by the way, I have additional exercises that are not in the presentation, and I'm going to be uploading that to Circle as well. So again, I know I keep talking about Circle, but I just want to make sure nobody misses anything. Okay. The last thing I just want to say is how many of you all, and I've written about this many times, are you feeling the great resignation that's happening? Kind of love this expression that's been coined recently, this mass exodus of people from their jobs who are saying, yeah, you're part of it. I'm assuming you're all part of it because you're here, but I am curious. Yeah, a fourth of my company quit since January. The power has shifted, but here's what's so interesting for me. And by the way, anytime there's like a challenge, I always kind of step back and I say, how interesting, because it kind of is. The interesting part is this past year, and I don't need to tell you, it was scary, right? Furloughed, fired, we were all kind of paralyzed, right? But then the power shifted. Now, hirers, and I know this firsthand, a lot of them are getting really desperate. So what happened in between us feeling like we had no power as employees to now the market has shifted in this way? But I think we're carrying a lot of, and I'm just going to call it trauma, PTSD from this past year. So even if technically the market is in our favor, that doesn't mean we necessarily feel like it is. But I do want you to remember that because this is the best time for you to be doing this work, really. Even if you weren't looking for a new job, and I put this in the newsletter today, just sharpening our messaging is just so crucial because recruiters will reach out to you, especially if you're optimizing your LinkedIn. Okay, let me go ahead and share my screen real quick here. You know what? If I do this, is this a full screen for you? I don't know. Let me stop the share. Hold on. Let me just get this right. Because I've done this before where it's like not full screen and I wasn't pleased about that. Okay. And in this, what I'm about to show you is an overview of the boot camp as well. because I know I said I was going to do that, and then I kind of just jumped right into it. How about this? Okay. If you all don't know beautiful.ai, if you haven't yet made presentations in this, I highly, highly recommend beautiful.ai and then Canva. We can have these conversations later as well. But if you are ever in need of creating presentations, designing social assets, this is like, and you can have a free version. Okay. How's this? Full screen? All good? Yeah? I just want to make sure. Resume share. Good. Perfect. Well, now I've lost it. Ugh. You've got to be kidding me. Oh my God. I'm so sorry. Can you? I'm so sorry. Gosh. Okay. There we go. All right. My God. Okay. Me. Don't need to go into that, but I'm happy if you do want to talk to me at any point. Just got my master's degree in behavioral finance and financial psychology. I pretty much got that degree and I started Ladies Get Paid because I needed both of those things. So I do want to be clear. I have been where you are at, and I am still figuring things out. Okay, so you have this all in circle. I'll of course share again, but one thing I want to just flag for you all here is there are dates, and you don't have to do any of this. We're adults here. I'm not grading you, but highly, highly encourage you to follow the prompts for when you need to upload things and when I encourage you to give feedback. So by, for example, I'd like you to upload your resume by November 7th. We're going to be obviously going over how to tailor messaging about yourself through your resume, cover letter, and LinkedIn on the 7th. But if you could upload the updated materials by the 11th, that would be awesome. I really encourage you to comment on at least 2 posts by the 14th, because that's the next session. Now, I know this is moving quickly. So what we're going to be talking about on Thursday is how can we best manage our time and our energy during this process? Because you're only going to get as much out of this as you're willing to put in, but we need to sustain our energy here. You all have lives, jobs, families. I mean, I totally get it. And it's a lot to do. So, but if we could do our best, upload updated materials by 11/11. If you can't do the cover letter, the CV, and the LinkedIn, great. Just do one. Just do one. So challenge yourself. Again, we'll talk about it next week and how to best map out our time and energy and how to hold ourselves accountable, along obviously with supporting one another. But this is the suggestion I would welcome you to follow. Same thing here, application strategies. We're going to be talking about that cold outreach on LinkedIn. How do you tap into your network in a way that doesn't feel transactional? Every job I have ever gotten has come through a relationship. That's my goal for you here, actually, is to never have to apply cold online. Even though we'll talk about how to get past applicant tracking systems. If your resume does go through them, the keywords need to be there, but I really want somebody to make what's called a warm introduction for you instead. But after we talk about how to be strategic in getting those introductions, I actually want you to start applying. I want you to start having those informational interviews. So for example, if by the 21st is when we're going to practice interviewing, could we have applied to some jobs before that? Could we have scheduled those informational interviews by that time and just putting it in a circle? Hey, I'm having a coffee with this person. Just one thing. But if you could stay involved and share that with us, again, you're going to get so much more out of this the more you put into it. Now you'll notice, obviously, we've got a big holiday in the middle of everything between, the 21st and the 30th. Take time. You could celebrate my birthday. That's November 28th. That's okay too. You could also use this time to reflect on everything that we've covered so far, and whether it's reviewing, materials and continuing to update and edit, or if it's actually, taking that quote vacation and applying to some jobs. So use that, whether it's rest and rejuvenation or as the time to actually execute on a lot of this stuff. Definitely recommend it. And then the 30th is the final day. You will be assigned an accountability group. I mentioned that in the beginning. This is going to be on Thursday. And that will be handcrafted, hand selected. But when you're in circle, you're going to connect with everybody. Make your own group. Same thing at the end, last session, we're going to just do speed networking. And I know last time we did the boot camp, it was done a little bit differently last year. People are still friends. And people have, I think, gotten each other opportunities. I don't know if they got the jobs out of it, but really great stuff came from the other people. I'm just one person. So use the fact that there are 73 other folks here, although not live. 4:22 my time, LA. So good. I am right on time. Any questions based on what I've said so far? Again, you can follow up with me afterwards. You can direct message me. But something I am going to be doing along the way is, notice here we've got 7 different sections for class today. I'll stop along the way. So after each section, I will check the chat and see what's going on. But so just like if you've got comments or questions, just put it in the chat now and I will get to it, if not immediately. I seem to have lost the chat box. So if somebody could actually just comment on something and should pop up for me. The tech situation is just pathetic on my end. There, found the chat. Comment. Oh my gosh, Darlene. Huh. All right, lols. Although I don't know why. Can you still see full screen? Just to make sure. Yes, perfect. Great. So what if, Mary asked, what if we can't make it on Thursday? You don't have to make it on any day. What you'll end up doing is getting an introduction to your group. Regardless, you'll be exchanging contact information. You can have a group chat on Circle. I'll show you how to do that. So, and if you feel like through the program, you're really struggling and you just can't commit, talk to me later about that if you need to drop out or, things like that. So we're flexible if you need to be flexible as well. Okay. All right. So what we're talking about today is, again, making sure we're going in the direction that we actually want to go in. It's sort of like setting a compass. And this is basically therapy work that I am doing in 1 hour. Years of therapy work. So I really hope everybody has other support systems besides this. If you can get a therapist, career coach, good friend, I just really encourage you to do that because this is some heavy stuff. So the first thing we're going to do is really take an inventory of expectations and assumptions, how we've defined success, professional success in our lives, how we've made decisions up until now, how much of that was modeled to us or dictated to us versus making a really conscious, deliberate, and intentional choice to follow the path that we've been on. So then once we have a sense of kind of where we've come from, it'll become easier, I think, to know where we want to go. But, and this is the big question, we think about the future and it stresses us out. Well, of course it stresses us out because it hasn't happened yet and you don't have any control. So where can we actually figure out those next steps? It's in the past, because there's a lot of data that we can collect from childhood till now. And I'm not just talking about what you've done professionally, but kind of who you are. Finding clues from that data that really demonstrate to you where you thrive, how you thrive. So that's flow. And that is an actual term that I didn't make up. It's like a scientific term. So we'll talk about flow, digging into those experiences of flow, right? Which is really another way of saying when we've come alive, right? When and where and how are we most stimulated? Specifically the strengths that we're using. We oftentimes get caught up in what are the skills that we need to succeed? Skills are different from strengths. Strengths can be cultivated, but I don't know if strengths can be learned. Skills can be learned. Strengths are innate to you, right? They come naturally to you. They're not a nice to have. You need to be pursuing a path and a role that really leverages your strengths, because then, and this kind of speaks to what I mentioned at the beginning of when something's hard, is it hard because it's challenging or is it hard because it's not right? If you're doing something that really capitalizes on your strengths, there will be ease to it. Then your interests. All this stuff sounds pretty obvious, but this is big. This is so big. And you may know the answers to everything I talk about. And if so, great, because this is the foundation. But interest beyond what you think you might be interested in, and really stepping back and going, what are the articles that I am drawn to, right? the things that you don't even realize consciously that you are, participating in. Is there information there that you can use to point you in a direction where you're going to be stimulated? I think I've used that word before, but when you're in an environment where you have curiosity, that your curiosity is consistently piqued, you have to be interested to be curious. Okay, so what is that? Values, and then distilling all of this into priorities, because obviously we all know we can't have it all. No one job has it all, but making sure that whatever your next step is, and also the rubric that you're going to be using to evaluate every opportunity moving forward, because I would love for you to have multiple offers after this. But then it becomes, well, how do I know which one is the quote right one? By the way, there is no such thing as right or wrong. But I'll give you some prompts for you to figure out, okay, does this again feel intrinsically good to me? And then some next steps. Fabulous. Well, that's interesting. 90,000 hours of our lives we spend at work. This is why I am obsessed with what I do. I am so glad you are here. Life is way too short to be unhappy at work. Again, you can't have it all. Should work bring you happiness? I actually don't think so. I think it should fulfill you in some way, but you need to feel good about what you do and understand why you do what you do. Okay, because you're dedicating so much of your life to this. But again, you know this because you're here. All right, this is the first prompt for you all. And I'd love to take, and I'm going to be doing my best to keep track of time, trying to give you all some time and space to really reflect, but also being able to keep moving forward. Like I said, this is just a starting point. You can rate the responses to this on your own. You can also put it in the chat. I love when we use the chat because it shows other people. Oftentimes we think we're the only one going through something. And so it can feel very supportive to see that there are other folks who've had similar experiences. Curious exposure-wise. So yes, there is such a thing as being told what to do or not to do, but there's also just modeling. What did your parents do, or family, community, school? What was the impression that you had of work through them, right? Again, through what was modeled. And if you did hear anything explicit, if you were told that work, again, should or shouldn't be a certain way, that kind of cliche of you can't be what you can't see. That's why I go back to the exposure. That's where I feel very privileged, because my first job, the career path, the job that was suggested to me came from my mom. She talked about development, people who raise money in nonprofits. I didn't know what that was. And I was lucky. I had a mother who told me what that was. So curious what that was for you. I'll just give you a couple minutes. I love whatever first comes to mind. I find instinct, I'll say this word again, interesting. Your gut always tells you something, but are you going to listen to it? So you want to put things in the chat. Also, let me know when you are ready for me to move on to the next slide. So it would be helpful just even putting into the chat just anything to let me know that I'm not speaking into the void. I know when we do this stuff in person, it's like I can see everybody writing, we're able to communicate here. I might be going too fast, I might be going too slow. I'll speak from my personal experience. I was raised to believe that I could love what I do. Very lucky, very privileged. My dad worked in publishing, my mom worked in the arts. But what they also showed me, and they showed me you could love what you do and you could make money. But they also showed me that there was a cap on how much money that they could make. My mom, again, worked in the arts. My dad worked in publishing. So I was also very motivated. You know what? I think I want to make a shit ton of money too. Because I saw that we didn't have as much as other people. But I also saw that you could make a living doing what you love. Like it is possible. I feel very lucky for that. One other thing I'm just going to mention before we move on in a minute is I had somebody early on in my career Did I even have my first job? Yes, I had my first job. A guy who has since become a mentor who said to me, how do you, Claire, how do you define success? And I've written about this before, but as I started to answer the question, he stopped me and he said, no. Like, no, I didn't even, what? He's like, no, try again. Like, okay, how do you define success? Well, I define success. And he cuts me off and he says, well, hold on. Whose voice is that? Like, what do you mean? He goes, is that your parents' voice? Is that your school? How do you define success? And he kept pushing me, and out came one word, and it was my instinct. And I want you to also be thinking about this throughout today's class. It was freedom. How do you define success? Freedom. And the next questions, and again, this is what I want you to be asking yourself, is how does that get expressed in your life? And then in your career, right? And your career has to fit into your life, not the other way around. What does freedom look like, feel like? Okay, that word, because it means different things at different times in your life, right? As we go through different stages. But it was really interesting. And I say that now because it comes from when he said, well, whose voice is that? So think about that for yourself. I'm not seeing anything in the chat, but if nobody says anything else, I'm like, oh no, you are in the chat. Oh my gosh. Oops, sorry, that's my bad because I was not even looking in the right place. Okay. Really great. And by the way, I have a class on decoding money mindsets because this came from my degree, because somebody mentioned money trauma runs in my family. A great prompt for everybody here, because hopefully this is starting to get you excited to dig into your past a little bit more, is see how what's your parents' relationship with money, grandparents' relationship. If you can try to chart throughout your family history, the place money has had, and obviously that's connected to career, you're going to see how it's morphed and how you now have come to experience money. Okay. And also immigrant. By the way, I'm going to keep this chat because again, people are watching who weren't here live. I'm going to be sharing the chat as well because we've got some great comments. Okay. Yep, we are getting into it, Mary. Okay. All right, let's talk about this thing called the tyranny of the shoulds. How many of you all have heard of this before? It is an expression, or it's, a concept that a woman actually came up with it in the 1950s, Kate Horney. So she has this theory that the self, I'll just read it. The self is split between an idealized self and a quote, real self. I don't like the word real because like, what is real? But let's not get too existential here. But Kate says, as a result, we often feel that we can never live up to the ideal self. If anybody feels like they have had imposter syndrome, hi, Julie. If you've had imposter syndrome, perfectionism, hello, the tyranny of the shoulds. Here's why I'm bringing it up today. And Amy Fulbright said it. She goes, shoulds aren't allowed, right? People, you've heard like, don't should all over yourself or stop shoulding all, I don't even know the expression. Basically, we are oftentimes living, recovering perfectionist, me too. We are oftentimes living according to the shoulds, again, whether they have been expressed to us explicitly or modeled, and we have now kind of absorbed it, okay? Those are parameters. You should not do this, you should do this, okay? Huge problem. It means we're defining ourselves in potentially a very narrow box. Here are some prompts for you. What do you think drives your career choices? Who, if anyone in your life, has commented on those choices? Have you ever done or not done something only because you thought it was, quote, the right thing for your career? What was the outcome? Have you ever regretted any of your career choices? By the way, this is a bit depressing, and I promise as we move along this presentation, we will be more helpful. Have there been times in your life where your gut told you something, but you didn't listen to it? What do you think was stopping you? And by the way, personal, professional, it's all tied together. Are there any professions or roles that you feel are totally inaccessible to you? Why? And by the way, if anybody has already worked through this, please share. If you're somebody who, for years, you really kind of stayed within a certain box, but you were able to now push yourself beyond, like, how did you do that? By the way, when we get into the mock interviewing session, I'm going to be going over imposter syndrome and also how to release performance anxiety. So that's because all of this is related. And that's why this boot camp, salary negotiation. It's like we're doing life right now. Like this is so much bigger than your job. I mean, clearly 90,000 hours of your life is dedicated to your job. And hopefully we all end up loving what we do, which is a privilege, you know? So there's a lot of big existential questions here. So take a minute. Interesting. Mary said, I didn't realize how much fear and scarcity mindset were running my professional life until I started working for myself. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, if anybody, and by the way, in the survey responses, one of the prompts was about if you're work for yourself, right? If you're a freelancer, own your own business, if you're full-time, etc. One thing I am going to ask you all is to let me know if there's anything that you think you wrote in the survey, and you can go back and check the survey. I think you'll have the option to edit the responses you already submitted. I would love to share that with everybody so you can all get to know each other. But if you feel like there's something that you said in the survey that you want to keep private between us, you'll just go back and look at your responses. And if you need help, let me know. Because I would like to share this survey on Thursday when we break into groups. But people did write some stuff about imposter syndrome and things like that. Yeah. Yeah. By the way, I do want to, I hope all of you, and again, totally other conversation to have, but as we're doing this work, I really hope everybody has financial safety net that they either have already set up or they're working towards. So at least 6 months worth of savings. Again, we can talk about more financial planning at another time. But I think I used the word privilege before, but your ability to walk away is contingent on the money you have. It just is. That is freedom. That is independence. It is money. So I will never tell you to just quit your job. It has to be within the calculus of where you're at financially also. But there also is fear that we can move through. And then there's the reality of finances. So we'll figure out what that difference is. If it's a fear that needs to be overcome because it's in your head, or if the fear is based on financial reality that also needs to be worked on. Okay, right. So Diane says, I can't walk away. I have no resources to do that. Again, I'm going to save this chat, send it to you all, but putting it in circle is great because somebody may have, I know I have resources to share about like a personal finance book or, things like that can help you make those next steps. And again, the goal in all of this is to just make progress, any kind of progress. So if that's a mindset shift, man, huge progress. Then the next step. Okay, let's start executing. That's huge progress too. I'm just going to look at the chat real quick before we stayed. How do you find a mentor? Okay. Adopted, fear of the unknown, adopted beliefs of what we've been told we are versus who we actually are. Yeah. Fear of making a mistake, of disappointing others, job wrapped up in my identity, all identifying with those. Yes. This is why, if you love what you do or want to love what you do, that is a huge part of who you are. It's not all of who you are. We also oftentimes think our value is based on how we believe that others see us. Then it's hard. If you get rejected from something, then it can make you believe that you are somehow not worthy of it. That's why this process is kind of scary because we are opening ourselves up for potential rejection from jobs. Like that requires vulnerability. So when you have all of these shoulds on top of it, yeah. Oh, good. I'm seeing somebody went through IVF. Now we have somebody going through it. Good. This is why I'm so glad we're sharing because you never know who you're going to meet and how we can support each other. Fabulous. I love this expression. This expression has been a huge guide in my life. I know it's a man. It is what it is. If you all have any mantras or anything that you have found to be helpful in your life, I think that would be awesome to share. Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do it because what the world needs is people who have come alive. Howard Thurman. Love this. Love this. This is what I believe. Again, if you have the privilege to find work like this, okay? This is what I want us to do. Okay, let's talk about flow. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce this man's name. He's a social scientist, and I loved his definition of flow. The ego falls away. Time flies. Every action, movement, and thought flows from the previous one. In a way, it's like playing jazz. Your whole being is involved and you're using your skills to the utmost. Instinctually, guys, anything come to mind that you've had an experience like this, and you doesn't need to be professional, because that's where I want us to start digging in. And again, you're gonna, after this, take as much time as you need, but there we go. Okay. Thank you for the pronunciation. Mihai Cheek sent Mihai. Michael St. Michael. Oh, fabulous. Thank you. Thanks for that. I usually feel like that when I'm weightlifting. Any experience. I love, soap and candles, because and I used the word data before, there's information here. It is so rich with information. And when you start to find experiences in your life where you did come alive, right? Where you were stimulated, where, it was like time didn't exist. I want you to write out, and by the way, track, like look in the past, but also from today onwards, when you find yourself, details. Write out all the details, because I want to know within these experiences, are there patterns? Is it when you're making things with your hands? You in a certain environment? Was anyone there, right? Is this work that you do when you're on your own? Is it usually with a team, right? Like, does this require, how extroverted were you in this experience? Lulling it up with my best friends, yeah. Cooking, orchestrating a dinner party, right? By the way, great. If you are stopping yourself in any way thinking, well, I don't think this is a career, or like, is it job oriented? Like, again, we've talked about this before. That's when we start getting into the shoulds. I want us to stay really far away from job titles, roles, industries, any of that. We're not there yet. This is like baby steps first before we can walk. Okay. Because we're just finding data and then the patterns from the data. Yes, good. So I was going to say, please put it in the chat, but you're already putting it in the chat. Awesome. I'm curious, as you start to, even just now, as you're thinking about the times you were in flow, like what are, LGP club cycling, anyone? Yes. I recently got a Peloton that I'm obviously obsessed with, because I'm like everybody. I resisted. In Circle, we have a fitness channel, and I was like, hey, anyone want to do this class at this time? Because I have an LGP, ladies get paid, hashtag, and my image, my little photo is my book, because I'm seeing if I can get sales by doing Peloton. So we can all connect after this. So I am curious, talk about accountability. We definitely all need that, or I need that. I'm curious, are there patterns that you can already see within yourself that does require you to break all of this stuff up into like little factors? Or we'll just talk about fitness right now. Like, what is it about singing? Do you know what I mean? Let's move. We'll go into the opposite of flow. Less fun, but you also this might be easier for you. Ooh, Julie, did you say sponsor? By the way, super glad you're here. My Noi House friend. I'm not glad that you don't have a job you love, but when I saw you signed up, I was like, okay. I know some of you, this makes me very happy. Opposite of flow. I am curious for you, how easy is it to come up with the answer to opposite of flow versus flow? You all seemed like it was pretty easy to come up with the flow, which is great. Times your energy was depleted or burnt out. Times that it just felt, again, that like, women oftentimes think that work is supposed to be hard, or hard work is the way we're supposed to operate. Not necessarily at all, actually. Challenges to solve because problems need to be solved, versus it just is so hard. Yeah, because there's information there that your body is telling you. So this is going to take more time for you that you can explore afterwards, right? Like all the factors that led to this. I mean, there can be so many. And like digging into, and this is where it's like, close your eyes, think about an experience you had, and like you're writing a screenplay, really work backwards from, okay, where was I? Who was there? What led to this? Because you might discover, you know what? I love what I do. I should do what I do. Wrong environment. Because they're like, this is a bro environment, it's competitive environment, whatever. Okay. Or you know what? This kind of job or this kind of industry is always going to require this kind of work, and I just don't want to. But you're only going to figure that out when you write all the details out and then you peel back the layers. Okay. keep going, guys. I mean, you all have the link, and you have the link in front of you. Because there's so much, like, Nicole said, agreed, not getting even a smidge of acknowledgement kills me. Yeah. Something that and this again is a whole other presentation that I give, but something I do want to bring up is I am curious how many of you all think perhaps you could stay at your company and it's just a matter of making it work better. So finding an opportunity that you can get excited about, having a conversation with certain people because of office politics, or maybe your manager, you need to level set expectations with them or learn to set boundaries, right? Because I always say, before you go through the process of trying to find a new job, is there a way that you can make your current job work for you? So I am curious how many of you all are open to that. Yeah, obviously we all want to position ourselves for the next opportunity, but we can have conversations about how to make it work where you are. Because some of the things I am seeing could be addressed perhaps by having those kinds of conversations. So let's talk about something fun. Strengths. What are things? Yes. And Diane said, I need to make it work where I am until I'm not there anymore. 1,000%. Absolutely. So there is the, how do I just keep the peace so that I'm not in a bad place? And then there's the, can we actually make this work where I'm gaining momentum in some way here? Great. And Lillian said, I have a second interview for a different position at my company. So that's also another conversation to have is, can you transfer? Strengths. So what are things I do really well? I would think to your flow, really, that's where I would begin. What in that experience do you do well? So maybe not so much with the cycling, although maybe you're good at cycling. Maybe taking another kind of experience, maybe that's not fitness related, although the fitness could be, hey, maybe we need to be moving in that direction as an industry, perhaps, or health. But within, thinking about childhood, for example, for me, I used to play with paper dolls. I created worlds, I could just be by myself, creating a whole world of characters who would talk to each other. I wrote plays, community builder, creating a world for people to connect with each other, right? The storytelling. I wrote a book, right? So what are the things that I do really well? I found that when I dissected my flow stuff. So I'm curious for you what that might be. It's also, what do I say, think, or see differently from other people? Ooh, I'm missing an F, but you know what? Recovering perfectionist. So we're going to be okay with that. This one's a little bit difficult. We're too close to ourselves, but I am curious if you've gotten feedback from anybody, and I have a phone a friend here, if you were to describe me to someone else, what would you say? Or, asking them, well, how do you experience me? What do you think that I see or do differently than others? But don't need to force the unique, how you're unique. We'll get to that when we go over CV, LinkedIn, and resume. But yeah, look, there you go. Nicole did a great one. I feel in my flow a lot when I'm having deep, meaningful one-on-one combos with someone I love. So I think my strengths are holding space for people, showing empathy, asking questions that dig under the surface, and genuinely listening. Nicole, should we have you become a therapist? Although I'm sorry, I should say, let's not go down the path of titles and roles in industry, right? We want to keep that way far away. But this is interesting stuff. Really interesting. And yeah, I actually could see you being a really good therapist. Right, making people feel comfortable is such a strength. I think oftentimes we ignore the strengths, number one, because we are too close to ourselves. So we take it for granted. Other people take it for granted. I think we work and it's changing, but I think we work we're obviously working within capitalism, but hard skills, right? Technical skills are really prized over anything else. Well, what about EQ? What about soft skills? That oftentimes we women are, or we oftentimes are very good at those things, but they're not necessarily prioritized or acknowledged. Okay. Interesting. Larissa said, I had a friend send a text today. She said, I was a quiet storm, who is efficient and skilled and determined to go at her own pace and carve her own path. Had a good cry on that one. That reminds me of, very good friend. It reminds me of, I taught a similar class to this at a company a long time ago. And I asked people, strengths. And one woman said, I don't know what mine are. And I said in the room, does anybody here work with her? Could you tell her? And there were like 5 people who all told her, and she started crying. So I've used the word existential before. I will use it again. This is some big stuff. Now, this is an interesting one. Lisa says, just because I'm good at something, so for in her case, it's writing, doesn't mean it's easy for me. Yes. And just because you're good at something doesn't mean you even like it. And oftentimes we get pushed down paths that we just happen to be good at. So it is separating that stuff out. But just write it down. Things like words like this, enthusiastic, positive, empathetic, or empathic, detail-oriented, collaborative, patient, resourceful, resilient, creative, thoughtful. There are so many more things besides this. Okay. Yeah, Jenny said, I need to tell myself that I tend to think of it, if it comes easily to me, it's not really work, or it's easy for everyone, so it's not a big deal. I feel like that seems like women would say that to them, like men would. If you ever are questioning yourself and you're feeling some imposter syndrome, I would love you to gut check yourself and say, would a mediocre white man feel that way? Maybe not. Okay. If you enjoy it and it comes naturally to you, this is the direction. Okay, let's talk about interests. If it's easy and you enjoy it, charge double. This is why I definitely don't want us to be charging if you're freelancers. And there's no one size fits all here, but I don't believe in charging per hour, because you do really something quickly because you've had years of experience and the quality of work is fantastic. So I think we should be charging by project. Yeah. Darlene says, I tend to underplay my achievements all the time with the, well, I was just doing my job. This was the response. So, and we're going to go into this when we go over resume and LinkedIn. When I ask women, talk to me about your accomplishments this past year, talk to me any, your wins. A lot of times I'm getting the like, and I'm like, can you not think of any wins? Or like, well, I can, but it's part of my job function. So like, how is that a win? I'm expected to do it. Again, that's when I think, would a man say that? A win is when you have provided a service to the company and there is an impact, and it is a good impact. That's a win. We'll go through them and we'll find the ones that best, kind of tell the story we want to tell to get where we want to go, right? But that is a win. You provided a service that had a positive impact. Not drowning is a win. Yes, surviving. We're all still here. My God, ladies get paid, suffered during the pandemic, but we're still in business. That's a win, okay? It's hard to have wins when you're desperately treading water, though. This is when you have to make sure you're feeling really proud of yourself, because that in and of itself is a win. Yes, it took a conversation with a male friend for me to recognize my own achievements. I know. Let's think about our interests. They may actually be like way early in time here on time. So if that's the case, we can unmute ourselves and have more of a conversation. But in terms of interests, okay. What topics or activities do you find that you're continually drawn to? This is an interesting one. I'm going to go back to the like, when you are lying in bed and you are, I don't know if anybody's subscribed to like Apple News, but like, what are the articles that you tend to be drawn to? If it's Dumois, for those of you who know what I'm talking about, that's me. I love pop culture. Huge Bravo fan. Now, does this mean anything professionally? Perhaps not. Like, perhaps not at all. Perhaps it's just an outlet for you to, an outlet for you, right? But there could be something there. There could be something there. And part of it is, what are there problems that you want to solve? Okay. I mean, that's the question if anybody's thinking about starting a business, right? What's the problem you want to solve? But in general, are there issues in this world that you are agitated to do something about? Things that move or motivate you. So for my mom, who became ended up running an opera company, she's very moved by the arts, by opera. And so she realized that what she wanted to do for others was to make them feel. She wanted to make people feel deep emotion. That was one of the things she wanted to do. Okay. Problems you want to solve, the wage gap, leadership gap. These were compasses, okay, for us. Yes, Darlene, I'm drawn to social justice issues, environmental news issues, technology news, and sports. Because what you may end up deciding out of all of this is, you know what? A job's a job. I'm going to have a job that's kind of easy. And I'm okay with that because I want that lifestyle. But I'm going to have a side project or hustle or commit hours to volunteering on something that I love. Because we're looking again, not just at what is the career path, but what's the life holistically? What's the life and what's the money I need and the job that I need to fulfill the holistic vision of my life, right? So understanding what this is and what place it's going to have in your life, again, it's very interesting. And, you know, and right, Amy, empowering others, right? I do that for fun on the side by volunteering with Girl Scouts. Amy, I'm curious, do you empower others in the work that you do? Now, does that mean the company you work for has to have a mission of empowerment? No. But are you in a position at the company where you mentor other people or your team is an empowering function, right? So again, it's we've got to just pull little like factors together here, little snippets. Ooh, good. We've already got people helping each other. Great. Yes, Amy, I'm happiest when I'm a mentor to others, right? And again, I want us to keep digging further here. Like, okay, when I'm a mentor to others, and I'm just picking this as an example, what does it mean? Like, what goes into mentoring others, right? So every time you have an answer to something, see if you can dig even further. So say to yourself, well, why? Why do I like that? What goes into this? Why? And once you'll start distilling it down. And if you can get like a big ass piece of paper, a whiteboard, like map this stuff out. I'm a huge fan of handwriting things, doing free form writing on like a, blank page. Then I like going through it, then I type up the notes and things like that. Okay. Now we're going to talk about, good. I'm so glad everybody's, Allison said, I love what you just said about career path versus life path. Even if I love what I do, I don't want to work 90 hours a week with no escape from emails and phone calls. I'd like a 9 to 5 that gives me a cutoff time that allows me an opportunity to do other things that matter. I'm so glad that you said that. I had a big awakening before COVID. We partnered with PayPal and it was really interesting. I'm going to overuse that word today. They sent me across the country to teach leadership classes. I was able to give an option of the classes, but most people did leadership of their different offices across the US. Every office chose how to get a promotion except one office, and that was in Omaha, Nebraska. Omaha, Nebraska said to me, well, we don't want to get a promotion because we're going to have to work more. What we want you to teach us is how to set boundaries. They were all in customer service. They're like, we're tired. We don't want to work more. It was like, oh, this is why you have to work backwards from what is the kind of life I want to live. The values, we're going to talk about values, but even I encourage you, think about what time you like to wake up in the morning, right? Just imagining an ideal day, an ideal week. What does that look like, feel like? Actually just did that with my therapist last week. It's part of what's called CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, if anybody's in it, where she really was like, we're talking about time management actually. Oh, wow, Melissa. Yeah, I used to work by the PayPal office. Okay, cool. So I was there. Where she said, what does an ideal week look like for you? What days would you be working and what kind of work would you be doing? Break it down in the morning, in the afternoon. She really had me map out my ideal. So I encourage you to do that. Okay. Motivating values. This is a really big, the next couple slides, there's going to be a lot of values on there. So peek ahead on your own. We're going to take a good time on this one. So what I'm going to have you do here, just quickly, I'm going to, we got a lot of examples. We've got 3 pages of all of these values, and there are so many more in the toolkit that I sent you. Don't be overwhelmed by them. This is fun. But what you're going to end up doing here is looking at that list of examples and rate how much each of the items matters to you. There's no science to this, by the way, and go on instinct, right? Circle all the things that like pop out at you. Then you can take some time really like absorbing what it is. If you can try to rate the list on a scale of 1 to 10, right, of how much it matters to you, that would be great. When you first go through and you do this, I would say the gut check is, do I actually, how much, like, does this actually matter to me, or does this come from the shoulds? Then examine some of the highest rated values and choose 6 to 10 that should have the greatest weight when considering career and alternatives. By the way, I'll share, I did get this from another, there's so many examples out there of how to do this. This is just one I can share with you. It came from the balance. Can also separate these descriptive terms into categories. So you'll see that in just a minute, such as like the who, what, where, and workload. So here's what I mean. Okay. So instinct, just go through super quickly. What pops out at you? This one, we got this. Again, this is why I shared the toolkit with you, or well, I did share, but I shared this with you so you could also take a look. Okay. Then we're also, so I gave you some prompts before, but just what we're going to end up doing together here, because that really was more for after, because there's a lot to do there. I want to see if we could narrow it down into like 5 to 10 categories, 5 to 10 values within 3 categories. If you can't do that, that's fine too. But the goal, as it is, as I mentioned at the beginning of all this, is once you collect this information, right? What are the patterns here? What do these have in common? And then how can you see them being expressed in your career, right? Back to the like, how do you define success? Freedom. Okay, well, what does freedom actually look like? How do I experience freedom? And then it's like something that's very helpful in all of this is when you're evaluating if this is an opportunity that is correct for you, it really oftentimes comes down to your values. And so now you'll know what to look for. You'll know what questions to ask during the interview. So I don't want you to waste your time with a company or a job that's just that's not aligned with your values, because ultimately that's what's going to burn you out. Okay, so let's take, I'm like tempted to say 10 minutes. I know that's, maybe let's start with 5 minutes. So just go through quickly, do the best you can. If you want to throw it in the chat, great. I'm also curious as you do this, if you are finding anything difficult. Probably you won't to begin with, but I am like, as we start to narrow this down. Here's the prompt. By the way, I'm taking some notes based on the things that I'm reading. Like, for example, Amy said, she said a couple of different values, but then she said high income because I'm terrified of living paycheck to paycheck. And that's where, I'm going to share some of my decode your mindset, right? Going, okay, does this actually, like, Is this generational trauma or historical trauma that you've had in your own life? But do you actually have the savings to be okay? Diane, yeah, I think I can't do this quickly, and nor should you. Just your instinct, right? First, when you see this whole list, what jumps out at you? I would just begin there, and then afterwards, when this class is over, then you'll sit with it. Yeah, autonomy and time freedom, right? Yeah, and that was in mine as well, and that's why I own my own business. You know, that doesn't mean you have to own your own business to do that, but I always say, what am I more anxious about? Working for myself, but not having financial stability, or working for somebody else, having financial stability, but having a boss, I'm more anxious to have a boss than having financial instability. So, and we're going to get into that in a minute when we go over priorities. Yeah, Brittany, all of the creative elements really pop out. I realize I haven't been able to have a creative outlet at work. It's very black and white and structured, right? And then this is where it's, okay, can you create an opportunity at work to get to be more creative? Is there, then it would be, okay, is there a class you can, like, what's a way to express creativity that's not getting a new job, right? Just to begin, just as a way to start like shifting the ship, right? Yeah. Great. Okay. I know this is a lot. Samantha, yeah, I'm also debating whether or not my struggle is that I'm bad at freelance. No, you're not bad at freelancing. Nobody's bad at anything. Just some things come more naturally, and other things are just a square peg in a round hole. And we just have to be, figure what that means for us. Okay, fabulous. Yeah, right. So Diane says, my priority is being rewarded for being a creative problem solver. I need a different environment to do it comfortably though, right? So you may realize, okay, what would an ideal environment look like? Day to day, week to week, etc. Now we know that the direction is, okay, how do we figure out what companies are doing that? And that might mean the informational interviews we need to get. How do we network our way into those companies? Okay. Let me keep going. Right. I'll keep going because I know this is really big stuff, but we'll all be in touch. We'll be in circle, and I'm there with you guys. Priorities. Okay. Here is how, here's an exercise I did with, that I did in my book, Ladies Get Paid. So by the way, the structure of the book, it kind of just covers the chronology of a career and all of the challenges that we experience in our career, lived through the lives of 9 real people, each of them going through a certain professional challenge. And as I tell their story, I stop along the way and I give advice as best as I can. So this directly comes from the book. This comes from a woman named Alicia. Really recommend you look. How many of you all know Girls Night In? You heard of it? Yeah, Darlene remembers this exercise. We'll talk about her in just a minute, but she is a career changer. She started in consulting because she thought that's what she should do. Many, many hours, big paycheck, hated it. As she was trying to figure, okay, if I don't want to do this, what do I want to do next? This is the exercise we did. So what are the things that you'd like to do? Okay, so that's like ideal. Things you'd rather not, right? But you'd like, I guess if I had to, okay. But then what are the deal breakers? So knowing the difference between these things, right? It's ultimately cost benefit analysis here, right? What are you willing to fight for? What are you willing to give up? Always going back to your values, right? So for her, she wanted to be in media. Okay. She wanted to work in New York and she wanted to make $100,000. That was her goal. Things that she didn't like, right? When she was going through that exercise of like the energy depletion. Okay. She really didn't like office politics. She really didn't like working by herself. She realized she was like a big team player, extrovert. And then she really didn't want to make less than $85,000. But that wasn't the deal breaker, right? The deal breaker for her was anything less than $75,000. That's the bottom line. Bottom line, lack of work-life balance, not that she wouldn't get to be creative. Obviously for yourself, you have to define, well, what does it mean to be creative? Is it creative thinker? Is it doing something with your hands, more like design work? Okay, this is enormous. This is enormous. Because you cannot have everything, you need to have, I think I used the word rubric before, something that you can filter these opportunities through. It's like, all right, fine. I'm willing to make a concession on this because I'm getting this other thing. Like, I'm willing to lower my paycheck. I'm willing to get paid less to be able to make this pivot. Or my mom, my dad, right? I'm working in the arts. I know I'm going to get paid less, but that is outweighed by loving what I do for a living. Man, you have to schedule times for yourself to really check in, like getting into a practice of being able to hear and trust your inner voice is so huge because only you know this. And that's hard to define outside of the shoulds. Those deal breakers, in my mind, not to like aim so low, but I think forget all the things we love. Let's just begin with like, if this does not happen, I'm walking away. And this is not, I mean, you could start by making a pros and cons list. Like, that's fine. That's how old relationship many years ago, I wasn't sure if I should break up with them. And I did a pros and cons list. And I had many things on the pros list. And I had one thing on the cons list. I thought in my head, okay, if I have, let's see which one outweighs the other. Well, it wasn't about how many. It was that the con, which was their inability to say, I love you, outweighed all the rest of the good stuff. And that was my value. I only figured that out when I really sat down and did this work. That's why, again, this is so much bigger than just getting a job, right? This is life, okay? Really important. You're not going to figure that out in 5 minutes here. Okay. Let me talk about just, as we filter opportunities, here's how I've done it. And I'll give you a little bit of a chronology in the next slide of my own career decisions if you find it helpful. So of course, is this aligned with my values? And then how so? And sometimes this means you need to be asking specific questions like, okay, you say you're committed to diversity and inclusion. How do you live your value? Like, how does you as a company, like, how do you live your values? Do you have examples of that? Right. What are the things I want to learn, experience, and access? That was enormous for me. That ultimately was how I decided if I was going to move. Just even from nonprofit work, liked what I did. It wasn't glamorous enough. There's no shame in that. I wanted to be fast-paced. I wanted to be around wealthy people because that's, to me, money was power. I wanted to be close to the power. That's okay, right? Experience, access. How will I grow if I take this opportunity? And you may decide, and we talked about this a little bit earlier and I saw it in the chat, that maybe there is no growth, but that's okay because you're going to get your life back because it's now going to be a 9 to 5. So maybe it's how do you grow as a human, not just as a professional. But if there is no growth here, I would say don't take it. Then what, if anything, will I need to give up if I take this opportunity? That ties back to the deal breaker. Because, again, you usually cannot have it all. Ever, really. There's always something or someone being sacrificed here. You just need to know what it is. I want you to walk into all of these experiences, these opportunities with your eyes wide open and at peace with the decisions that you make. I'll just tell you a little bit about my career for what it's worth. Graduated, no idea what I wanted to do, got a major in sociology, which I was like, I took it because I just found it interesting. Well, that actually turns out, because that's the word I've been using all day, that's actually, I don't know, Holly, like, do you feel like it's made, because you're sociology too? Does it make sense for the work you do? Because I never thought it did until I realized now it is everything that I do. It is the study of people and how they connect within society. Sociology, it's creating worlds, right? It's community. So Yeah, it was the first intuitive decision. The reason I didn't think it was ultimately a good choice for me was because it was very science-based and I was really bad and uninterested in science. So I ended up not doing well in the degree, but there you go. Anyway, graduated, didn't know what I wanted to do, but a friend of mine, he wanted to be a filmmaker and he was going to Bosnia to shoot this film. I was an au pair in France at that summer after I graduated. Hey, I looked up how much it would cost to get to Sarajevo, and I had been in a film in college. I had won the high school drama award. I always wanted to be in theater in some way. And I thought, you know what I'm good at? Raising money, because I had done that in high school. Let me go and raise money for you. And I started by just writing a letter in French to the French, the consulate in Sarajevo, because I had some funding for the arts, and I got it. I got him money. Okay, I'm a producer. So I go there. Now, then I realized too hard. I don't want this kind of life where, you do a bunch of work and then it doesn't come out for so long. Like I needed a quicker payoff, right? And I wanted more control. And I wanted to make money. So that was not going to work for me then. I wasn't willing to be patient. That's when my mom sat me down and she said, well, here's what you're good at. It's raising money. You did that with the film in high school. You raised money for causes. It's 2009. Nobody's hiring, except a lot of nonprofits were hiring fundraisers. So it was also a combination of what I was good at and where there was opportunity too. Okay. Worked for a company, worked for an organization that helped teach kids how to learn, in inner city schools, how to play chess, and it would get them into SAT prep program. And I raised money. My job was to help raise money from younger people, young professionals. And really it ended up being event planning, because what I realized was it was not so much about raising money. It was for me in terms of my goals, but it was about creating an experience where these people wanted to network with each other, because that's why they were giving money. It was about society for them. It's mostly investment bankers. So I'm doing that and I'm realizing as I'm connecting with these very wealthy people and, they're in banking, power. Okay. I started to have this feeling like, I don't know what I want to do, but I want to be close to the power. And as I've defined power, it's money, but I don't want to be in finance. But so where do I be? Okay. Then I thought about filmmaking. That's media. Okay. Media, power, events, marketing, maybe, because brands have money. Media has huge power, and marketing, it's storytelling, and events is really what I was doing. And I can talk about networking at another time, but I was able to get an introduction to somebody who had a company that does experiential marketing, right? Events mostly. I get the job there. As I'm doing that, I ended up doing an event at the Art Directors Club, which is a nonprofit that helps connect people in visual communications. And I ended up getting a job there later. But at the time, it piqued my interest because what it made me realize was that I was very interested in professional people developing careers. I thought, okay, something's here. Do I want to be in career recruitment? I didn't know quite what was there, but something piqued my interest. Street Attack ended up closing the company. So I was unemployed. That's when I looked at, and I always say it's not about how much you make, it's how much you spend. I looked at unemployment, what I would be getting. I looked at how much my rent cost in New York City. And I thought, and I'd had an idea for a startup, and I thought, you know what? I can afford for 6 months to not get a job if I sublet my apartment. And instead, I'm going to live month to month with friends. I picked 6 friends. I lived with them per month. I would buy groceries and contribute, but not pay rent. And I could do that. And I created a startup that was about filming people about their careers, and doing interviews about their creative careers, mostly people in advertising and design. And the idea was to cut them up into little clips with keywords attached to their stories. And so if you were interested in exploring alternative career paths, you could do it in this database of video clips. Now, as I'm doing this, I'm realizing, man, I'm not very good at it. I had a hard time making decisions. I'm like, what's a business model? How do you manage people? I knew nothing. And I'm running out of money. An opportunity comes up at the Art Directors Club, right? Remember, I'd done something there. They were looking for somebody to do fundraising and marketing. Oh my gosh, it's perfect. Because that's when I said, I need a job. And this makes so much sense. as I'm doing this job there, I realized no more nonprofits. I want to make too much money for this. And I also know I want to eventually start my own company. And the things that I wasn't good at, didn't know, I think I could learn it from somebody else, but I need to work in a startup. Working, not working. It's a startup that helps connect people for work. Got the job there, director of marketing. It was doing that work that I realized I'm a little bit less passionate about getting people a job as I am helping them thrive in their job. And through some sexist experiences, it was women. It was women. And that goes back to what is the problem you want to solve? Realizing that lit the fire and gave me the energy to quit and start Ladies Get Paid. But all of this whole line at the time, there was no 5-year plan, but I would ask myself a series of questions as I took each opportunity here, right? What am I going to learn? What am I going to experience? What am I sacrificing? Right. So thank you for saying I love hearing about your journey. I'm always like, do people want to hear about me? I don't know, but like, this has just guided me with each decision that I made. And by the way, I could do all of this because I did have actually quite a bit of loans, student loans, but I paid off my loans. I lived very frugally. I don't have health challenges. I don't have kids. I don't have to take care of my parents. I don't have an immigrant pressure, where my parents, they were very free with what I could do. And if I needed to go home or ask for help, I could. It was that freedom that allowed me to take risks. But would you say that the jobs I chose were risk-taking? Not really, right? But they were not in banking where I was making a lot of money. So it's not linear. Let me tell you that. Some things to remember in the next 8 minutes. So if you want to do that in your own career, by the way, like looking back at the decisions that you made, this is actually a good exercise, I'm realizing. All of the decisions that you've made, I want you to reflect on how did I make this decision? Like, what was my rationale? And you probably made it based on a couple of different factors. Was there a dominant factor, right? Did you make this out of financial desperation, right? Or fear? Or you made the decision because it gave you something. Good. Now, just getting to understand more about your own decision-making process. And it doesn't just have to be career decisions, by the way. A couple of things to remember, and then I'm happy to unmute and we can keep chatting for the last 5 minutes. These are my own, sort of quote words of wisdom, take it or leave it. I really believe that your life will only be as big as the risks you're willing to take. Now, does that mean you quit your job in a fiery ball and just go forth and do it? Like, no, this risks, calculated risks, I should have said, right? It's not what you make, it's what you spend. 1,000% believe in that. It's okay to feel a little imposter syndrome. You know why? Because if you are pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, if you're doing something that you've never really done before, of course you're going to feel like, maybe I'm an imposter. I got a book deal. Amazing. I was racked with I have never experienced this level of imposter syndrome, and I was right to feel imposter syndrome. They gave me an advance. They believed I could do it. I hadn't proven myself yet. But then I realized, this is a challenge. Like, this is growth. This is a challenge. I'm doing something new. Good. Otherwise, if everything's so comfortable, then you're being complacent. And that might be okay too. Just, again, need to be fine with it. If you're growing, you're succeeding. So if in any possible way there is growth happening, whether it's you learning something about yourself or about the industry, what you don't want, that's good. You are the most important person in your life. If you've got kids, I know you want to say it's them, but here's the thing, right? Oxygen mask on yourself first before anybody else. You really need to prioritize yourself in some way. Usually it begins with health. Really do. Ask for help before you need it. I am curious how many people came to this boot camp because you are just like full on breakdown mode, or if you're like, okay, I can see this coming down the pipeline. That's like not going to be a good situation. Like, the goal here is for you to be able to see some signs. It's time to like make a little shift rather than coming in like full crisis mode. That would be the goal. And to not be afraid to ask for help because it feels good to give. And I said this earlier, it shows people that they're not alone. That is the email I get after when I went across the country. I did town halls in 19 cities when I first started Ladies Get Paid. And I got the same email after every town hall, and it was, I thought I was the only one. And I'm looking at my inbox, kind of laughing. The irony of it is they're all the same email, and they all thought they were the only one. Life is too short. I thought this logo, this little icon was funny because I typed in life and it gave me a baby, which I guess makes sense. It looks like a little Russian nesting doll. This is depressing, but I have tended to work backwards from a very morbid place, which is, if I was hit by a bus tomorrow, how do I feel about the decisions I've made today? And regret. Do I regret not doing something? How often times do you regret doing something versus not doing something? I feel like we often regret the things we didn't do. I think I saw in the chat a couple of things of like, I regret making this certain decision, but I would say if it taught you something, like my quote, failed startup, right? The one that I had before, I now can do Ladies Get Paid. It's still, I'm doing the boot camp. It's all connected. But I did make these decisions based on life is too short. And actually, I've heard a lot of entrepreneurs do think about death quite often. So I guess I'm not the only one. Okay, so some next steps. And then again, I know we're a bit early, so we can have more of a conversation, but I do want to touch on this. So introducing yourself on Circle, message me if you are having trouble with it. If you could actually, so if there's any technical questions, whether it's about Zoom or Circle, please email community@Ladies Get Paid. Because Roselle, who she was CC'd on all of your emails, she checks the community inbox. So does Ashley. Like, you'll get a quick response based on that. If it's a content question, Claire@Ladies Get Paid, or just message me on Circle. But if it's about Circle community, fill out the survey, please, please, please do that before Thursday so I can put you in groups. Respond to the prompts. Now that you have the presentation, the slides, additional exercises for extra credit, I will send you what those exercises are. Then I would love you to start researching the companies. Some of you have already put this in the survey, but just companies and roles and industries that kind of speak to the work that you've done today. Interesting people doing interesting things, podcasts, magazines. Like, if we can start collecting as many like pieces of information and resources out there, so that we're not wasting our time, again, applying for things that it still like sort of matches the should. So just start doing the research. And then I would say, so for Thursday session, because this is the goal setting and accountability, I would come prepared with how you will allocate time over the next 4 weeks, plus a tracking system to hold yourself accountable. So, even looking again, just at your calendar, okay, based on the things we're going to be going over, I'm going to dedicate like 2 hours a week to doing my homework or whatever. And as detailed and as specific and as realistic as possible is the best. And if there's a spreadsheet you can make, or Trello, people use that, Todoist. It's okay if you can't come up with anything, because other people will come with ideas, but give some thought so we can make Thursday as productive as possible. If you're not on Instagram, find me there, Claire Gets Paid. And I am going to stop the share. We are at time, but I will keep the recording on, because if we want to look, oh, good, you're all still here. Ooh, all right. Again, it's hard to, not in person with you all. So I hope this was good. I think it was helpful for some people. So Allison said, I'd like to edit my survey after today's chat. Not sure how to do that. I'm pretty sure in the settings I put that you have the ability to edit. Let me check that. I don't know, Allison, if you looked at the survey and like if this is based off of something, I don't know. I have to check. So let me survey for me. You can edit your answer, right? Julie said, where's the survey? Yes. So let me post the survey again. Yeah. Because again, if you can't do everything before Thursday, survey and Circle. There we go. Yep. Okay, so same question as Samantha. Oh, okay, edit the survey. Yeah, I don't know. When you click on that link, what comes up for you? I've actually never edited a survey after I've submitted results to it. So tell me if somehow that doesn't work for you. And I will also make sure that the settings, it's a blank survey, can't see answers. Well, maybe time limited. That's a good point. Let me think about how to do this. Part of me wants to just share the spreadsheet with the answers, but then you see other people's. So Darlene said, I started my survey yesterday and clicking on the link restored my answers. Interesting. Email me, message me on Circle or whatever, because I'll share with you what you said. I'll have to think about the best way to do this, because if everybody wants to revise their responses, I'm going to need to think about how that doesn't get crazy on my end. So give me, if you've got suggestions on how to best do this, there should be a setting that allows you to make responses editable. Yes, I believe I did. Let me check on that after this, how to edit the survey. What else do I owe you guys? I'll send an email, because again, there were a bunch of people who couldn't come today. So just recapping next steps and obviously sharing the toolkit with them, the presentation, etc. Okay, other than that, any more questions? Yeah, don't edit your stuff. Let me just, let me take a look. Yeah, Mary Susan, thank you, Claire. This was quite helpful and intense. Good to see you, by the way. Love seeing repeat folks. Well, you're a pro member. Something that's, and by the way, everybody, Mary Susan Schilling, she's got a great network. If you're interested in being in the media space, she's like runs a bunch of really cool stuff and knows a lot of people. Okay, so much homework. Yeah, yeah, boot camp. Take what you will. Do what you want, but be real. Commit whatever, start small, be realistic with it, and then commit to it. And then just let yourself be proud of yourself throughout this process. That's something I'm constantly just checking in with myself. And if you need to do a practice of journaling in the morning, unfortunately, I don't have my journal here with me. But a good prompt that I ask myself is, ideally, how do I want to feel at the end of the day? And then what are roadblocks that I can anticipate, and how will I work through them? That's really helpful. Okay. Yeah, Julie. Wow, Mary. Yes. Yeah, let's all get each other jobs. All right, guys. I think we're good. Great session. Fabulous. You are all fantastic. Grateful to you. I hope this was helpful. And again, boot camp, so a little kick in the butt with a boot. But I mean, again, progress is showing up, and you did that. So much love to you all. I am here for you through November 30th, with the exception of November 28th, because I will be celebrating my birthday. And if I do respond to you, tell me to get off of email. Anyway, we got this, ladies. Love it. I'll see you on Thursday and on Circle in between.